What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So one of the questions I've been getting asked over and over the past couple of months, it's been the same question, and it is the housing market going to crash? If it is, when will it crash and what should we expect? Well, I want to really address this because I think a lot of people are looking at the housing market, seeing it's going up, and eventually it has to come crashing back down. But that's not necessarily true. Let me give you some facts. Here's what we know. Since 2018, home prices have been going up and up. Since 2020, home prices have skyrocketed. We know year over year, the average home has gone up in value over 16%. According to the National Association of Realtors, they say that home prices in 99% of the markets in which they follow have gone up. Now, Americans thought that during the pandemic, home prices were just going to come crashing down. Exactly what happened in the stock market. However, even though the stock market completely tanked, it was like March 20th or around there, it has gone up and it has done exceedingly well. Here's what I can tell you. The housing market, yes. Could it see a crash? Yes. Theoretically, it could. Will it? Well, let me explain. Here's what happened, okay? While millions of Americans were waiting for the housing market to just come crashing down so they could get in at very low rates, right? Very low payments. What we're seeing is that didn't happen. It didn't happen because the government stepped in. But here's what we know. During the pandemic, this is what this has done to regular people. The pandemic changed things. Here's what happened. Keeping people locked in their homes or in confined spaces for the last 20 months or so, this has only made people realize that their home that they're living in is not the home that they want. They realize that the space that they need is not there. They need something bigger. And with record low interest rates at this time and over the past year or so, this is when many people are saying, we have to go and buy a home. So if you can find a home, great. If not, just keep putting in those offers because it's going to be difficult. But here's something else that the pandemic did. The pandemic caused more people to move away from bigger cities. Now, let me explain what happened. When large companies decided to let people work from home, Apple, Facebook, Google, right? Microsoft, when people, Amazon, when people could work from home and do the exact same tasks that they did in the office, here's what happened. People did not have to drive and make a long commute to the office. Instead, they can work from home, which meant they need to have an office space at home. If their home did not have an office space or a set space where they could work, well, guess what? They opted for the convenience of working from home over working in the office, but it came at a price, and that was a higher price for a home. So people started buying. Now, that's not all. The United States currently has a housing shortage of over 5 million homes. Over 5 million. But get this. At the end of 2019, we had a shortage of 3.84 million homes. So the pandemic has only amplified this shortage. But here's something else you need to keep in mind. One of the leading causes of the amplified shortage, this hasn't been that, people have money. Those $600, $1,200, and $1,400 stimulus checks, right? Those $3,200 in income or payments that we got from the federal government, right? This isn't why more people are looking at their income and their budget like, oh, I got $3,200. I can go and afford a bigger home. Or those child tax credit payments of $250 to $300 per month. That's not what's causing more people to get a bigger, more expensive home. Here's what's happening. Right now, what's causing the amplified shortages is right now, we are seeing there's a supply chain issue and we're seeing that there's a worker shortage. Here's the problem. When home builders cannot finish a home on time or in a reasonable amount of time because they don't have the workers, guess what? Some people are just not going to build a home. They're going to look for a home that's already built, or they're going to stay put for the time being. Here's the second issue. If builders cannot get the lumber or the building materials they need to finish a home, guess what? They have to wait. They have to wait a little bit longer. This means people are waiting. This is one of the causes, and this is one of the big reasons why many Americans have so much money saved up in the bank, which is hurting them because of inflation, but they have so much money just sitting in the bank because they're waiting. They're waiting for their builder to get back to them. They're waiting for approval from the city or the county, and it's causing a lot of issues. But again, all this stuff is making real estate prices go up even higher because more people are coming into the market, but yet there's no more homes coming onto the market for sale. It's causing a big issue. But with all that said, when are we actually gonna see a housing market crash? When are we gonna see it? How bad is this going to be? Well, here's what you probably didn't expect. First, a housing market crash would mean steep, rapid declines in prices. But this is where the problem lies. People who took out mortgage forbearance, right? Many people were thinking, oh, we had 5 million people, or I think it was like 1.6 million people still in mortgage forbearance in August or September of 2021. Well, mortgage forbearance was a great program. The federal government allowed you to go and change your 30-year fixed mortgage from a 30-year fixed to a 40-year fixed mortgage. That means you got an additional 10 years to pay that debt, which means your payments actually went down. That's really good. Some people that did take mortgage forbearance right now, maybe they aren't changing from a 30-year to a 40-year fixed mortgage, but instead, here's what they're doing. They're selling their homes, but not at a loss. Remember what I said. We have been seeing home prices go up since 2018, up and up. Now we saw a little dip, in between 2011, 2021, yes, but it wasn't that dramatic. So the majority of people out there right now have so much equity in their home, even if they sell, even after they pay their realtor fees, closing costs, whatever else they need to pay, their mortgage, obviously, they are still making money. So there's no way those people are going to get foreclosed on. But here's what you need to understand. Even the people that are getting foreclosed on, and this is what happened back in 2008, is many people got foreclosed on because they couldn't afford their home. They had an ARM or an adjustable rate mortgage, which all of a sudden ballooned up, right? It shot up, and people didn't know this. People didn't, back then, as long as you had, a job, okay, you could pretty much get a mortgage. There were even some lenders that you did not even have to have a job, okay? You didn't have to have a credible job. You didn't have to have a very long work history. They would give you a mortgage because everybody knew home prices don't drop. But here's what you need to understand. Even those people that are getting foreclosed on now, and I actually ran across a foreclosure, which I haven't seen in a while. I ran across a foreclosure last week. And even though somebody got foreclosed on, here's what you need to understand. That property started going through the foreclosure process over 2 years ago. Foreclosures do not just happen overnight. It takes a while. The process takes a little bit. Even now, it's expected that a foreclosure is going to take months. So don't expect, if somebody is going through the foreclosure process today, that that house is going to be available tomorrow. It's going to take months. So this is going to take a little bit of time as well. So that's what you need to factor in as well. Now, let's talk about the possible crash that is coming. Is it going to crash the housing market? There is a possibility that yes, it could, but here's where the crash is coming. Let me explain this. Because the crash is not going to directly result in a real estate crash. Here's where the crash can come from. It's actually coming from a weaker dollar. When the dollar weakens and the value of the dollar goes down, what happens is many people start to lose faith in the dollar, in the US government, and right now as we print more and more money, it's only causing more and more issues. Here's what I can tell you. The government has printed so much money in the past 2 years that we are seeing extremely high levels of inflation. Now, some people say this is just transitory. However, others say that we are going to continue to see high levels of inflation all the way into possibly November and December of 2022. So we're still a year away. And the government isn't done printing money either. Right now, the Federal Reserve is still buying $105 billion worth of government-backed bonds per month. So, a crash would come if the dollar continues to weaken and weaken. Here's what I can tell you. Right now, when people are concerned over the value of the dollar, it's going to cause a major crisis in our economic system. And what's going to happen if this does take place? Here's what we know. If we see a slowdown to our economic system, what's going to happen is people are going to stop spending money. Going to save it, they're going to hoard, right? They're just worried what happens if, right? They're not invested, they're in stocks, they're not invested in real estate probably, and maybe they're not invested into cryptocurrencies. That's fine. Holding on to that money, right? Almighty dollar. Here's what you need to understand. When people stop spending money, others will be losing work, right? So just keep this in mind. Let's say I don't go into my favorite restaurant every single week and I don't buy, food, right? I don't go and my family and I don't have dinner. So if I don't do that and 50 other people do not do that, what's going to happen is 51 people that now were buying food and paying for that restaurant and paying the salaries of those workers and the owners and the rents and all that stuff, right? Gone. Well, as people stop spending money, those people that work at those certain businesses will now lose their jobs. As people lose their jobs, what happens? They cannot pay their bills. What's the biggest bill that most people have? It's their mortgage. That is one of the biggest issues. Is right now the most expensive bill that people have is their mortgage payment. Well, what happens if you cannot make your mortgage payment? That's where we could potentially see the housing market completely crash. But again, many experts do not believe this is going to happen in 2022. Some say this will not even happen in 2023. But what I see happening, what I see happening personally, prices are going to continue to rise. We're going to see them continue to rise over the next year, possibly 2 to 3 years. Within the next couple of years, here's what is going to happen. And this is going to start very soon. What we're going to see once we're out of the pandemic, whenever that is, I have no idea, do not have a crystal ball, cannot tell you. Once we're out of this pandemic, what we're going to see is when we see that worker shortage, we see that get resolved. We see the supply chain issues get resolved. And the supply chain issues will be resolved when the worker shortages are resolved. The worker shortages will be resolved when, get this, the pandemic is somewhat over. So we solve the pandemic, solve worker shortages, solve the supply chain issues, solve the housing crisis. It's a big, long domino effect, but it can happen. Here's what I see happening. In the next year or two, when the pandemic is over, hopefully, we are going to see new homes. They're going to start popping up at record levels, record pace. Now, this is going to cause more people to move, which means they'll move into possibly a bigger home, which means the new entry-level homes will now be available for first-time home buyers, and everything will go back to normal. The market will somewhat level out. But again, I don't expect that to happen for possibly 2 to 3 years. So, here's my advice to you. If you're looking at buying a home right now, first, just keep looking. Do not overpay for something that you are not for sure going to live in for the next 10 years. Third thing is, if you do not have to overpay for a home, don't overpay. I understand that if you've been putting offers in on 5 to 10 homes and you're not getting any one because people keep on overbidding, do not do that if you don't have the resources. Don't fall into that trap. The fourth thing, possibly the biggest one, find a property that needs some work, Here's the reason I say this. If a property is valued at, say, $500,000, but it needs work, and you think once this home is completely fixed up, it could potentially be worth $100,000. Here's what you can do. Buy it at $500,000, put a little bit of sweat equity in it, slowly do it, maybe raise it up, put an additional maybe $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 over the next year or two, put that money into the property. So now you're in it, let's say $520,000, but it's worth $600,000. You have $80,000 in equity right there, which you can borrow against, which could get you into another property. The second thing that you can do is, if you needed to and you needed the money to pay off, let's say, a credit card or something, you could go and borrow against that home as well. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could. The third thing, possibly the biggest one, is it keeps you protected in case the market were to come down. If for some reason you're like, I gotta get out of this, I need to sell my home, you have some wiggle room in there where you can sell it now. And you could potentially be out of the home with no additional costs, right? Nothing out of pocket to you. You're not upside down your loan. So that's what I recommend at this time. But again, as we know more regarding what's going on with the housing market, if we're gonna see a crash, are we gonna see prices continue to go up, I will fill you in on all the latest news and updates. Again, all you gotta do, first, if you enjoyed today's video, go ahead, hit that like button. Also, consider subscribing so I can keep you up to date on everything that's going on, and I'll see you guys on the next one.